Oh, yeah. We're gonna get the stop motion thing like it's from the fifties or something.
Welcome to Move It, the program that explains how the stuff you use every day gets to you. I'm David Maloney. Today, we begin in
Everybody hear it?
Waukegan, Illinois, at a distribution center that fulfills the phrase, just what the doctor ordered. When it comes to healthcare products, Cardinal Health has the prescription for success. The company understands the complexities and challenges in healthcare today, such as dealing with controlling costs and ever-increasing regulations. The medical segment of Cardinal Health delivers 1/3 of the products and supplies used every day by more than 40,000 hospitals, surgery centers, and physicians' offices.
We have a wide variety of products. We go from bedpans to heart packs. We have gloves, everything you might see if you walk into a hospital or a doctor's offices.
The Midwest Distribution Center here in Illinois is one of the company's largest facilities. It covers 725,000 square feet and is one of 5 mega hubs that distribute medical supplies regionally, as well as it ships to the other 38 distribution centers that Cardinal Health operates nationwide. Its local territory covers Illinois and Wisconsin, as well as parts of Indiana and Iowa. Accurate processing and delivery of these healthcare products is crucial. People's lives are depending on getting the right supplies on time. To accomplish this task, 4 miles of conveyor systems keep products on the move here. 180 lift trucks and other powered equipment also transport supplies between processes and to and from truck docks. Information is also critical to properly track medical products in case of a recall or other emergency. Cardinal Health has invested more than $400 million in its software systems to assure that it knows where all products are at all times. This is known in the industry as having full visibility.
Visibility is a key point, within inventory, within being able to respond to customers, also from a regulatory perspective as well, lot numbers, expiration dates, serial number tracking. So we have all those things within our business today. Our systems are built to capture that information.
Most of the products at Cardinal Health are stored in these large racks with the goal of placing them in the most efficient spot in the warehouse, based on how often the product is needed and other physical characteristics. As a result, approximately 80% of the stock is only moved once into a location and then picked from that same location until it is empty. This area is known as a pick-to-belt module. It is used for the most commonly shipped items. Employees in this multi-floor module pull cartons of supplies from the racks, label them, and place them onto a conveyor belt, hence the name pick-to-belt. Items that are shipped in less than full case quantity are picked here using a voice-directed system. Warehouse management software works with a small computer worn as a belt pack. Cardinal Health associates hear audio commands through a headset, directing them where to go and what items to pick. Cardinal Health has many customers with different product and delivery needs. Some customers are part of a low unit of measure, just-in-time pick and delivery program. These customers order just what they need each day. Products have been picked for a specific department or storage location in the hospital. Pickers place the products in totes marked for those locations, and they are delivered inside the hospital dock daily or as often as required. The totes are reusable, saving both money and the environment by eliminating the use of cardboard. A number of products need to be kept refrigerated or frozen, so there are specific areas for them. This associate works in a freezer that keeps products at minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Cardinal Health has such a large and efficient distribution network, but the company also offers supply chain services to other healthcare companies. This is known in the industry as being a third-party logistics provider, or 3PL for short. The company's 3PL division, Integrated Logistics Services, is able to provide fully outsourced turnkey supply chain solutions to medical manufacturers.
What a third-party logistics provider will do is we will provide portions of the supply chain for you, whether it's the warehousing, the transportation, sales, regulatory, manufacturing, import support. We can take care of the supply chain for them.
So they don't have to make the investments that we do every day to make sure that we're a great distributor of healthcare products. They can focus on their products, making their products better for better outcomes for their patients, why we focus on getting those products from their manufacturing site to that inpatient where it's consumed.
Cardinal Health also operates its own dedicated transportation fleet. It combines its own products as well as products from its 3PL partners to make deliveries anywhere, from a hospital to a patient's home.
Our trucks run to the providers, the ambulatory care centers, the surgery centers every day. So we give that capability of a manufacturer to ride along with the Cardinal Health distribution products so that they don't have to make that investment themselves. Their customers like that because they get one truck coming to their door instead of 4 or 5 or 6.
The Midwest Distribution Center holds over 37,000 different products in its inventory, all of which are delivered accurately and very efficiently as part of its nationwide medical distribution network. And with Cardinal Health Integrated Logistics Services, that same distribution, transportation, and regulatory expertise provides services to medical manufacturers to assure that they too have healthy supply chains.
Okay. Commentary from the food checker. All right, so today we start in the second half of our course and covered the CLT. And so in the announcements, I've sent out a copy of the book, and of course you have that available to you out at OpusWorks. And you want to make sure that you enter in our new code for the class from the syllabus so you can actually see the materials that are out there. So you pull up our textbook from where I sent it to you and make sure all that's working.
Excuse me, Mr. Yancey.
Yeah.
This is Martell Stott. I'm using the name Latia right now.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know.
Okay. All right. I thought I wouldn't see you today, but we got that covered. Either way that works. Okay. So we got CLP textbook, then your announcements. And of course, you can see that when you go to the OpusWorks link under materials too. And it's set up the same way the CLA is, as far as there's 9 chapters, and you'll have video segments, except of course CLT1. For some reason, some of these go out to private owners, the links do, and from time to time we have to go back and reestablish our links. Well, the one that this one was established with is gone. So we're trying to find a replacement video for chapter 1, but we can talk our way through that, or we can come up with examples from that from other sources. So this basically covers the entire cycle of the logistics replenishment. And it starts from product receiving, which is what we're covering today in chapter 1. And then what we do after it gets to the door is product storage. And so next week, we've got one of those where we're going to have 3 chapters in 1 week. It's going to be yummy. And it'll be order processing, packing and shipping, and then inventory control. And then in our 7th week, we will pick up safe handling of hazardous materials. So we take that class to the next level we had in the first CLA. And then chapter 7, which is evaluating the different modes and which one to pick for transportation. And then in our last week, week 8, we got dispatching and tracking operations. It acquaints us with all the paperwork for delivery and for shipping. And then the last chapter is conversions and measurement, where we look at standard versus metric. And that's going to have a calculator and all the formulas on the exam, so you won't have to memorize any of that. Okay, so chapter 1, we talk about receiving. This is probably one of the most vital links in the process, because people that have good attention to detail skills, that they can have accuracy when it comes to accounting. And get something here, it must be dog fur. But it helps. It's vital because if we say we got 100 cases of something at the door, once it comes into your possession, you're responsible for that customer's product. And if there was only 80, you just cost your company 20 cases of whatever it was. So there's other things like the condition of the product. We want to make sure that it's resellable, that there's no damage to it, that it's not contaminated, that it's, all there. So the
Mr. Yancey.
receiving is a very high responsibility. It usually pays a little bit more too because of that.
Mr. Yancey.
Yeah.
So if you have an order of 100, boxes or containers or whatever it is that you're ordering coming in, and you only have 80, do you refuse that, that coming in just because it's 80 and not 100?
No, we're going to show you that you actually just make note of shortages. Most drivers are going to have a different type of document depending on who your customer base is that you're getting your shipments from, but they all serve as a receipt, a delivery receipt. And so on the delivery receipt, you put short 80 cases of this, 2 cases of that, and then you and the driver sign it. And then that gives the driver what they're looking for to show that they delivered it. It's sure the driver has some responsibility on the security of the trailer and all that, but if it went into the trailer and it was short 20, it was whoever shipped it that actually owes you the 20 cases, not that driver personally. So usually that's not a contentious point there where the driver says, well, wait a minute, now there's 100 on there when I backed here. That usually doesn't happen. But and there could be things where that's all that was in the shipment and they just didn't make an amendment to the shipping documents. But having an accurate count at the door is vital. And so we're going to go through some of the things that they do to ensure that that happens. Now he's asleep on my clicking hand.
Professor.
Yes.
The only thing difference is if you're receiving one item compared to multiple items. If you're getting multiple items and you're short, you're going to have to check off which items you're short on. So you have to receive that whole shipment in order to know what your shortage is, correct?
That's true. So now if you raise the door up and everything, say it's food, and inside this trailer, there's these different temperature zones that you can have. So up in the front, there's a refrigeration unit that's in the vehicle, in the trailer. And in the front, they can go as low as like 10 degrees below zero. And the farther back the trailer you go, the warmer it is inside the trailer. Well, there's a certain loading procedure that you put the coldest items up front and then work your way back. One of these instances at a warehouse that I witnessed was that they loaded the truck exactly backwards. And so they had like bananas and potatoes and stuff that could be at room temperature up front at 10 below zero. And then they had ice cream and frozen meats that needed the refrigeration were in the back of the trailer, and it was all melted and thawed when the truck showed up there. So when they raised the door up and a tidal wave of ice cream rolled out, they knew there was a problem. Instead of going through and trying to figure out what was usable and what wasn't, they just rejected the entire load. Right. And so there are instances when you're like, hey, if you bring that into our inventory, you're going to contaminate our inventory. So, they just stop it at the door if it's something of that nature. If it would have been just like 2 pallets were in there and it was frozen and it was ice cream, you're like, okay, we'll take those 2 pallets, but where's the rest of our food? And, you get a delivery receipt that reflects what was missing or damaged. On that one, they just said $378,000 worth of food rejected. And so, and it was a brand new operation that was sending them. And that was my next customer, was at the other end. But they sent 3 of those trucks that same day that were packed wrong. And it was because it was a brand new loader that was holding the loading diagram upside down. It was shaped like a T, the diagram was. And so the top of that T was the barrier they put for the refrigeration. Well, it was upside down on a clipboard. And so he was loading it like an L and with an inverted L with no barrier up there with the refrigeration until you got back to the end of the trailer. So it was an inexperienced loader, one person. But if you look at that chain of custody, the driver who closed the door on it has to look at it and say, well, why is there ice cream sitting back here at the end of the trailer? And a supervisor, a dock supervisor who signs off before any kind of door can close, was supposed to have looked at that and made sure that the pallets and everything were setting up right and that there wasn't anything obvious like ice cream at the end of the trailer. So, and then the security checkpoint when it left the place was supposed to do one final check with the load diagram and raise the trailer and look and see if everything was where it's supposed to be before it even left the compound. So there was 3 or 4 layers of failure there that just went to show that if you don't have people that do attention to detail, not only on receiving, but on shipping, then you have those kind of $1 million accidents. I mean, it was 3 truckloads of food that were valued at over $300,000 each. And the folks were not happy that had to reimburse that, the insurance folks. So I'm trying to get this one panel to go away here. I think this is what I need. Nope. Nope. Okay, let's do this again. So anyways, we got the receiving that's happening, and here's the picture of one of the surface flush docks that was shown in our video. That's what they were using, and it's the most common dock that we have is basically the ones that back up and they attach to the building itself. So this has the sequence that you're looking at, and if you've already looked at the quiz for Clt 1 and you've started taking some of that the study guide for the Clt, I've seen a couple of people already did that. It kind of asked about sequences for which one comes first or which one comes next when it comes to this receiving process. And so it says step 1 is the inbound trucker phones the facility to get an appointment for delivery and then tells them about the shipment. You know, I'm bringing in 600 boxes of frozen turkeys. And then step 2, the receiving department verifies the advanced shipping notice. We talked about that before in the safety and security chapter in the CLA. And it basically is if you have been doing business with this company and it's on a continuous basis, you can set it up where, you know, we know you're not going to be trying to contaminate or send some kind of harmful or a bomb or anything like that into our facility. So since you are a regular person we do business with, you only have to give us like a 30-minute notice before you deliver with a truck. And then there is like a 4-hour notice with a train. There's a 2-hour notice with aircraft. And then it's a 24-hour notice with a ship. And so if you're in this advanced shipping notice type of system, then the receiving department can check their electronic mail and their digital files and say, okay, this is what's on that trailer. And so they can start getting the departments ready that know that, hey, you're the freezer department, you might want to tighten up where your turkeys go because you're about to get 500 more of them. And then the truck arrives and it's assigned a specific door. And so if you've got this facility with a freezer at one end, you want to make sure that that trailer gets to that end of the warehouse. You don't want to have to travel the whole distance of this huge football shaped stadium size facility and add all of that travel time that's in there. Then you want to make sure it's safely secured to the dock using those J hooks that pull right under the back, what looks like a bumper on a trailer. It links into that and pulls it in to the building, and then you get a green light saying that it's actually locked to that dock door. And then the seal on the truck container is inspected. So when they pull the two doors in the back of the trailer together and latch it, they actually put something like a zip tie. They're usually metallic, but some of them are plastic. They put a zip tie through there and it has a serial number on it. This tag does, to make sure that when they sealed it at the other end, that it hasn't been tampered with, that seal is still going through where the lock would go. And so it's another step in the security, is making sure that the container or the trailer hasn't been opened since it left the shipping site. Then we look at once you raise the door, materials are inspected and either accepted or refused. And you have this time frame. The driver's allocated, say, an hour to deliver, and that's from the time they pull in to get to a door, to get their stuff inspected and get it offloaded and then accepted or rejected. And so these doors are set up with a staging area, and that's usually where everything gets unloaded first before it gets divided up into where it's going to go in the warehouse. And so you basically got the area the size of that trailer that's dedicated to each one of those doors as a staging area. And so let's say we got 4 trucks that come in and they're all auto parts. And so we can stage those different, one of them just has transmissions, one of them just has engines, and one of them has a mix of transmission and engines. Say we ordered more than a truckload. So they sent this one that had pieces of engine and transmission pallets on it. Then when they go to these staging areas, when people start to put it away in the where it needs to go in the facility, they got access to all of the engines that came in that day and all of the transmissions, and they don't have to go around, where did you guys leave that last load? They know they're in these staging areas. And so once they're in the staging area and unloaded, all unloaded materials are then staged for count and final inspection. Proper documentation is made of damage, missing, or incorrect materials, because you could have got the wrong stuff too. And so then materials are positioned for storage in the assigned location. So this is what the receiving cycle looks like. And if done properly and orderly, it's probably the bottleneck. It's where there's the most moving parts, or there's most stock and materials at any one time, is in this receiving mode. And you want to try to clear the dock off as quick as you can so that that door becomes available for the next trailer. So when we're talking about the timing, and say we got 5 doors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first door or truck that comes in goes to 1, and then people start doing this receiving process on it. And by the time the second door gets occupied, let's say they got 20 minutes worth of work done on the first one, and then a team starts working on that second door. And by the time you get to the 5th door, you've had, you know, an hour and a half to unload and put away that first door. And so just to keep as many doors clear as you can, once that 5th door gets occupied by a trailer, that first door should be cleared so that the next load that comes in has a place to go. Sometimes it's not that, you know, clean, where you got the same amount of time spent on unloading each trailer. Some trailers are hand loaded, and you can't really use any type of forklifts or any kind of machinery to take them, unload them. So those take about 5 times longer than using machinery. Depending on what the freight is, some things need to be hand loaded because they could be damaged if they were used with forklifts and stuff. But there's different types of loads that are larger, and so maybe need just 6 pallets come off and it's unloaded. And then there's some that are very small, and they have many small tubs that get recycled. And those have to be, it takes a little bit longer to get them off because there's so much stuff on there. So these steps in the receiving department, I've got like a PowerPoint that I'll post out there for you that have a trailer, and it has each one of these steps. But we're going to do that as an exercise today for extra participation.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Question, or not really a question. As an ex-driver, if you guys ever are working on a warehouse dock on the either the unloading, the receiving piece of it, don't just think of yourself when you're doing that unloading. You really think of that driver too, because his time is valuable as your time. And I'll give you just an example. I was driving out of Columbus, Ohio. I had to deliver to Gordon Foods, and which was about 30 minutes west of Columbus. And I had a delivery appointment at midnight. And I started at 8, so that gave me 4 hours of my 14 that I could use. It took them 8 hours to unload it, and I ran out of hours at their dock 30 minutes away. So I had to sit at that facility for another 10 hours before I could move and make any money. So when you are receiving goods, it's not just your company that's important, it's that driver too, because he needs to keep moving and keep that freight flowing as well. It cost me almost $300 for that day for just to sit there and make no money. You do get detention of $20 an hour after 2 hours of waiting, but I was averaging about $50 an hour driving. So you can see what I lost in that whole time frame, because they have to when they unload, Gordon Foods has to check each item off that for accuracy that they do receive everything that's on that truck. And it can take 8 to 10 hours to receive a truck. With
Yeah,
multiple.
I could probably make some money on that process if I went in there and showed them a better way to do it, because there's no truck that should take that kind of time to receive it. And there's no reason to keep the driver and the trailer there. If you got a full load of something, then there should be an empty trailer somewhere on that area that they say, okay, you're good. We see everything. We think everything's here, but at any time they can come back and do an update saying, hey, once we got down into the nuts and bolts of it, we found a box of fish sticks that was damaged on the corner, and we can't sell those 3 boxes out of it. I mean, there's things like that the driver can't be responsible for things that happen when it's unloaded. After they deliver, they've really fulfilled their responsibility. And now detention rates run somewhere around 150 to 200 an hour. So depending on who you work for, the driver shares in that, because like was just explained, they're not earning money when they're sitting there waiting for somebody else. But detention rates are somewhere around $300 now per hour. And they break it down in 15-minute intervals. So it could be like 75 per 15 minutes that's past the agreed delivery time. Now, if the driver was getting $30 for 15 minutes, that would probably be a fair swap for their time. But depending on who you drive for is how much they share in that detention time with the drivers. It's bad business for everybody if it's a holdup like that, because that door is occupied and the next truck can't come to be loaded or received. They don't get paid much just to sit there with product inside an empty building. So product has to come in for them to charge storage on it, and then product has to go out for them to charge shipping on it. And so the warehouse distribution center, it's losing money the same as the driver is. But you want to have a good working relationship, because you're probably going to see that same driver 3 or 4 times a week. And he's one of the team members. So we usually, when I go in and help bring the customer service level up, it starts with your internal customers. And those drivers are your first and most important internal customer. So if you're not taking care of the people that help you do your job, then you can't take care of your external customers, the people that you're actually selling the service and the product to. That's a good point about the detention there. We cover that a little bit here. Okay, so there's also this planning. So you're going to have like one of your transportation managers or dock managers are going to know what kind of deliveries are expected when they're going to arrive. And there should be a procedure as to where the drivers go to, and they usually have that in their delivery instructions. And then there's the clock starts basically trying to get a truck that's supposed to be unloaded from 10 a.m. until noon. It's got to be off that door by noon. because there's another truck coming in at like 12:15 that gives them time to maybe sweep off the deck and let that guy or that driver clear out of the area. And so if you get behind on one, then the rest of the day you keep getting behind. Pretty soon you're behind on 2 truck deliveries, then 3 truck deliveries, and then nobody ever wants to bring anything to your doors again. So it's all about management, and automation does help. But there's things that are beyond help, and sometimes it's weather. So trucks run late because of holdups and weather. Sometimes it's around holidays where people in that warehouse are calling off work, to be with their families, and they don't have enough people to operate the equipment and get those trailers unloaded like they normally do. So there's a lot of things that can go into detention or waiting times. But ideally, you reduce that as much as possible, because nobody's making money when that's happening. The driver, the warehouse, the customers, they're all losing when there's a extended wait time.
Are there any companies that allow like drivers to drop off their entire trailer, like unhook and then leave and then pick up a new trailer and leave right away?
Yeah. I mean, say I'm replenishing a Walmart distribution center. Everything on that trailer belongs to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So who are they going to go to and say, hey, you guys shorted me a box of Cheerios? It's Walmart's distribution center that sent it to the store or sent it to the warehouse. And so if you are driving for your own company, that's not as rigid a policy about everything being inventory. But for the most part, the larger distribution centers, let's say Amazon, the stuff that comes in there is not only coming from Amazon warehouses and distribution centers, but Amazon will buy a whole case of just say batteries. And so they want to make sure that the product that they're going to have in their available for inventory actually shows up. But yeah, it's the same thing like with the trust issue, where you're saying that this truck can show up within 30 minutes time frame because they're involved in this internal software that says, hey, I'm sending you 500 turkeys. And they go, okay, well, this is a return customer from Petridge Farm or whoever, Purdue. And so the same thing happens at the other end, like, we're not going to hold this truck hostage. We've got another trailer that belongs to Purdue. Go ahead and hook to it. And then they trust that you will inventory the stuff that they sent. And if there is a problem, they take pictures of it. Usually there's a video of that truck getting unloaded, that trailer getting unloaded. And so it's pretty easy to prove that it came off the truck damaged. And so with things like video and working relationships that say, look, I know that this warehouse wouldn't invent that we were short 2 cases of turkeys. We've been doing business with them for 5 years or whatever. So yeah, just to keep that time for that driver, because he's an intricate part of the business, very valuable, and to keep the flow going. A lot of times they just let them disconnect from the trailer. They sign saying I received a trailer. And then once the load is taken off and staged, they can tell if there's any problems with it. And so probably 3 hours after something's delivered is when the transaction to pay for that load actually gets started. It's not instantaneous. It's because they want to have a chance to open it and see what all's in there. So
easier way to understand some of that though, Professor Merle, is remember the LTL guy is really carrying multiple loads on his trailer. When you're seeing like Dart Transit or JB Hunt or any of these big companies that are driving, even these small little independents, they're mainly carrying full loads to these distribution centers and warehouses. They're carrying full loads going to them. The guys that are carrying mixed up loads that maybe you get a pallet out of 20 that's on a truck is really your FedExes, your UPSs, your LTL services, everything that is carrying more or less intercity, except for when they do long hauls between between location to location on some of those, like FedEx does and all that. But these major carriers, they're all carrying one company's merchandise, and a lot of it, 90% of it, I'd say, is drop and hook, which you drop the trailer, hook up another one. But you do get the occasional live load or live unload situations, is what it's called in the trucking industry.
Yeah, so it could be what you're hauling requires that it's inventory. If it's a high value, or say it's livestock or something where they're going to check the health and the condition of the load. But that's a good point, that most of the folks who deliver to these huge distribution centers are, the whole truck is the same customer, be it different varieties of milk or different varieties of poultry or whatever, it's still the same one customer. And so when you have these less than a truckload type of situations, it's usually with items that weigh less than 150 pounds, like each load is less than 150 pounds, because the customer couldn't afford to hire a whole trailer to deliver this one pallet. And so these smaller loads, those are when they actually put the stuff on the trailer, that company makes its money by loading it. The first thing on is the last thing off, and they can make their money making sure that each one of those stops has some type of petition or anchoring to keep that load from having any damages to it. Because you are more apt to have a damaged load when it's less than a truckload, because of the different stops and the rehandling and reloading and all that. And so they make their money and their reputation by being very efficient in how they load those trailers to make sure my third stop is the third thing from the door. So it only takes one screw up if they load it backwards, where the first stop they have to load everything on the trailer and then to put it back on before the truck driver and that customer make sure that that never happens again. They get intimately involved in supervising how it's loaded, just to ensure that it comes off right.
Hey, Professor.
Yes.
So at Amazon, I'd say about every third trailer we get is not packaged right.
Oh, that's bad.
Most
Never,
doors
not at Amazon.
yeah, most doors at TDR open, they are trashed.
And is it because they went on there haphazardly? There was a speed type thing.
Yeah, it's them trying to speed pack these trucks, and they're not.
And then they're not
secured.
secured. They're not wrapped, or they're not crated in any way. They don't put the pallets. They don't secure the pallet loaded to the pallet.
Yeah, most of the time, like it's like pressure the door too much. You can't even get the trailer doors open.
Oh my goodness.
That's called load shift while you're driving.
Right.
That's
It
true.
shifts all to the back door.
And so that could be an inexperienced driver, or they got caught in traffic and they got but it really goes back to whoever closed the door. If that load was not securely loaded, where it's put in, where the heaviest pallets are towards the front and the bigger loads are on the first row, they're trying to put 2 rows of pallets, I'm sure 2 levels up.
Right.
And I have seen some ugly doors open up. But you can't stay in business by continually doing that. You got to upgrade your quality at the other end, because your customer that you're shipping for gets tired of getting returns. I mean, I've got packages here where the whole corner's missing. And the driver, when they drop it off, they go, "Dude, it turned up that way at our warehouse." I said, "And you still delivered it to me?" "Yeah, you're the one that has to reject it." "No, you can reject that." I have to give supply chain classes to delivery folks, but it's a quality thing, and people will make you pay for it if you don't do the quality thing. The bad thing about Amazon is the fuel, as it goes up, and it's going to keep continuing to go up. They're not going to want to send the stuff back that's been damaged at no charge to the customer. And then customers are going to be saying, "Well, wait a minute, why wouldn't I just pay for delivery and not worry about it being thrown at me?" I'll pay $5 to get something sent to me in one piece. So that free shipping becomes instead of leverage is what it is now, because people are thinking, hey, I don't have to pay for shipping. Anything that you don't pay for, you get that quality of service. And so their money is not in the shipping for Amazon. The money is in the variety and the volume that they do. So when it starts becoming a liability where they're losing too much money on damaged stock, then it'll become a priority. But I can already see that happening with the raise in fuel prices. It's costing Amazon more and more to do returns and deliveries. They're going to have to upgrade their game when it comes to the shipping end, because like you said, if every third door is bad, oh my God. Yeah, the lost labor, lost materials. There's another contract I could go out and make a couple $100,000 off of, just training them how to do that.
Yeah, apologies to anybody who works on, but Estes trailers, the worst.
Worst.
They're terrible.
Yes.
Daggone, you guys got it down to a shipper.
Oh, I could go through, but it's also a safety concern that people, the poor guy that's opening that door, he's getting nailed by boxes falling on him, or the load shifted so bad that a pallet tips out. I mean, that has happened, it's bad.
I've never had a problem with Amazon, but I've had problems with FedEx where they'll refuse delivery to our house just because they don't want to, because we kind of live in the country. Or when they deliver something to us, the box is smushed. And then my dad will call customer service and be like, oh, that's not our fault. We didn't know about that. It's your fault.
Yeah.
So word of advice, don't ever use FedEx.
I've called myself saving money by ordering online, and ordered a air conditioner compressor for one of my other vehicles. It took 3 weeks to get there, so I knew it was on a boat coming from China or from somewhere else. And when it got here, it'd been thrown around so much there was a hole you could put your fist through in the box. And what happened is somebody had sent this back. It was the wrong size, and they repackaged it for the wrong compressor. So the inserts inside of the box that are supposed to keep it from moving around were for it was for an alternator instead of a air conditioner compressor. So this thing was just popping around like popcorn inside that all the way through transition. I ended up just sending it back and getting my money back, and I'll just go down here to AutoZone somewhere and buy one. But when it comes to loading trailers, it actually, my brother's got a disability from it. He was only like 23 driving a truck. He picked up 3 big rolls of paper for a newspaper company. And 3 rolls of paper make up a trailer load. And they didn't secure the rolls. And before he got on the interstate from that warehouse, he drove less than a quarter of a mile, was getting on the on-ramp to get on the interstate. The top roll tipped and the whole trailer flipped over and flipped the truck too. And so, he was harnessed in and everything, but just the force of being flipped upside down that quickly, when 20 tons of paper rolls over, it doesn't make a oops, it makes a slam. So yeah, I've seen that up front close with doing things without doing it right. And he thought they anchored it right. They had metal bands and all that stuff on it to keep it in position. It wasn't near enough support for it. So yeah, it is about doing the right things. Okay, so we're on.
So cute.
We had somebody else.
You said your puppy is so cute.
Oh, this dude. I've had the night shift since we got him on Saturday, and you can tell he doesn't sleep much. And when my daughter gets home from school, she takes over with him, and he just sleeps on her lap while she does her homework. So he's all refreshed and recharged for me to take over, and I get him from like midnight to 7. And then my wife takes over for a shift that she's teaching today, just like I am. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to grow out of that a little bit more. Because when I got him, I'm outside at night even with a flashlight, letting him run and go crazy just to try to get him to take a nap so I can get some sleep. But
That'd be called crating him. Putting him in a crate.
they do have crates, him and my other dog does. My other dog's crate broken. But this dude, you know, he had a large litter. There was like 7 of them. And he was the second one to go out of the litter, so he was missing his siblings. But he's not very happy when he's not around another beating heart. So we're trying to get him through that. If he wasn't so rambunctious with the other dog, I mean, he just grabs a hold of his ears and swings, biting him, you know, just trying to play with him. Okay, so we got, here's our first document. Most common one is called the bill of lading. And this is basically a receipt for delivery. And this can be used in all forms of transportation. They have different names for a air bill and for shipping on a manifest for seagoing ships. But this is the most common one. And it's basically the person who is transporting it, the company, the drivers or the ship operators, rail operators. And sometimes it's the seller of the materials that produce this document. And what they have is whoever is carrying it, the transporting part of the transition, which in our business we call the logistics part. That's when you're moving stuff. They're the ones who ensure that this document's filled out right and that it's going to the right person and that the right stuff is on it. And then that's their insurance or that's their receipt for their part of it, the transport part of it. So they talk about a consignee, and that's the actual person who delivered it to your door, the driver or the company that they represent. And it has a kind of a rough drawing of one here, and in your textbooks you'll be able to see it. Speaking of which, anybody get them? Anybody get their textbook?
Yes, I got mine.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yesterday.
Yes,
It
yes.
came Amazon. It came by Amazon.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Okay.
Never got mine though,
Who's that?
Ryan.
Huh. Well, I'll double check, but anybody who sent me, I mean, I got some last week of 2 people that sent me their names and the addresses that I put in that batch. So
I still haven't got mine.
and that's Robin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an add-on for Tuesday after class. She sent me her address and I put it in that batch. So, and I put those in the mailman's hands. I know they went to the right place. So on the testing, while we're talking about stuff that was supposed to happen this week, I have like 3 students on my online class that have made their appointments through ProctorU and have actually took the test with ProctorU. So
Me too.
it is working. People are getting yours work, Deb?
Yeah,
So
mine
when I
worked.
go to
I passed.
All right.
ProctorU, it doesn't even have it on there. It's got like a whole bunch
Wow,
of math
nice.
classes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
No,
I haven't accessed mine either.
it still has it. It has it on there.
there was
No,
a
it's,
short list of
no.
students that I sent an email to that says, hey, my test center says you don't have an account with MSSC. She couldn't see your account because you registered using a non-Indianapolis test center. So it added a little bit of a delay. She said it might be an extra day because she had to have, once she figured out what site you were registered with, which is what I put on there. If somebody used Kokomo or they used Muncie or they used Evansville or Columbus, she had to go through your test center to get it released to send to Indianapolis and then put on ProctorU. What a go-go.
Oh, okay.
I
So
still
it
don't have
added a
the test
delay
on.
that we'll get that. It should be done. She told me it should be done by today. So
Okay.
anybody that had that situation, we're aware of it. She got involved and moved it from your test center to our test center, and now they should be able to see it.
Don't worry, Kate, we're still gonna give you an A for the class.
Jeff, how did you do on the
Yeah,
exam?
tell us about it.
I'll tell you, when I did the practice test, I was doing 96s, 97s. I got through, for some reason, it took them an hour and a half to get me loaded. And I did 77% out of 74. There was a lot of questions that aren't in that practice test that
Really?
they bring up. There was no whatever in Sarah. There was no the guy in Sarah questions
Mark.
at all.
Did you take the CLT instead of the
I
CLA?
took the CLA. And I got 77.
I see that this year. Yeah.
It was a lot different than our practice tests.
Well, you know, I explained this last week because was it Connor that took it last week and was saying there was stuff that wasn't on there?
Yep.
All I get is what you folks tell me that wasn't on there. So while it's still fresh,
Right.
say, you know, there was more questions about this that we that weren't on the practice test. They might have been in the quiz or the textbook, but they weren't on the practice test. And that's how I put this together, because MSSC doesn't want us to have a practice test.
I sent to you my scores that showed the categories of my percentages. It actually showed the safety piece, the communications pieces, and it showed my scores. I scored 100, and that was on quality control. I scored 3 in the 60s, 2 in the 70s, couple in the 80s. There was eight categories.
Yeah, 9.
And there was only 8 in the test, 8 categories in the test.
Huh.
And I sent that to you so you could see the categories.
Okay. Yeah, normally those categories are the chapters that we have in each one of the CLA and CLT. What I recommend for you folks that are getting like, oh crap, I don't have a real good gauge to figure out how I'm going to do on this, is the quizzes, because those are live loaded from MSSC. Those aren't something stagnant like that practice test that I put together. Right. That one, I think the modification I did to it was last spring. So it's had a year that I haven't changed a question on it, added or took it. So those quizzes are live loaded from MSSC. If you take those quizzes more than once, you will see different questions. Yes. So if you take it once and it had 20 questions, you take it again, and you'll see like 3 or 4 new questions that weren't on that first version. And so 1, try to get as high as you can above 80%. And 2, take it more than once if it's an area that you're not familiar with. And when you start scoring consecutively in the 90s and 100s on your quizzes, that's why I give you that extra point for getting 100, right? Because I know you probably had to really research that or take it more than once. But then I look at those people who got the extra point, and they always do extremely well on the real certifications there. So if you're sending me
when it comes to tests, I choke. I can do it at home and that, but when it comes to under pressure, I'm a choker.
Well, and that's why I want you to feel confident when you get high 80s and 90s on the practice stuff, that you go in there and you know you're getting through it. But a 75 is an A on the CLA.
Right. That's right. A pass is a pass.
They don't come in and go, wait a minute, you got 0.05 less than the next guy. No, they don't give a rat's butt about that.
Right.
If you got 70, is it 74.2 or whatever? Or
74.9 or 74.6.
You are
a pass is a pass.
CLA.
And I'm guaranteed a C in this class.
Yes. Yes. But we would hope you reach farther for the stars there. Sorry. Okay, so we're on bill of lading, and this is what they call the straight bill. And basically there is information that's on the front of it only. It has information on the back of it. So depending on what kind of shipment and who you're doing business with, The most common, like 99% of the time, is going to be the straight bill of lading where you just got one side and there's nothing printed on the back. But the information that's on there is it's a receipt from the shipper for the materials received for transportation. It's a contract of carriage. It's telling like who's getting, who actually delivered it to you. And then there's this presumption of the title of the materials. In other words, when you receive it, you own it. And so it still belongs to who shipped it when it's in the possession of the transportation. But when it gets to the destination and you sign for it or you receive it, then the ownership changes to you. And so it says it has this information. It's got the shipper's name and address. So whoever you ordered your stuff from for your warehouse, it's going to have their name and address. Then it's going to have whoever your shipper was, the consignee. If it's a third party company, then they'll tell who they are and what their address is. Then there'll be a description of the materials offered. 500 frozen turkeys. Then the gross weight of the shipment. Why do you think that's important?
Is it to make sure that it's not overloaded?
That's true. Yes. And so the person that's driving the vehicle could be a third party service. And when they pick it up from the shipper, the people who sold it to Amazon, they don't want to exceed the capacity of the truck that they send out there to pick it up in. And so there's different size trailers that can handle different size loads. And having this information lets them know what kind of trailer to send to you for it to be loaded. But the gross weight also is part of the equation on how much the transportation company gets paid. And it could be based on the mileage, how far they have to carry it, or it could be based on the weight or the size of the objects that they're transporting. And whichever way it turns out most profitable for the carrier, the transportation company, is the way that you're going to pay for that item to be delivered. And so if I was sending a trailer load of toilet paper, I wouldn't charge by the pound. I would charge by the cube. It filled that entire trailer up. So they would pay for the size of the contents in that trailer. If I was sending bags of concrete, then I would want to charge by the pound, because it will not fill up that trailer before it exceeds the pounds that trailer is allowed to carry. And so that's how it changes. And then based on how far you're carrying, if it's something like in the middle of the road, like I'm carrying a truckload of glass, there's going to be a charge for handling some type of a breakable or fragile. And I'll probably charge it per the mile more for that breakable fragile instead of looking at weight or cube. So all of that is worked out with the shipper and the shipping company. You don't have to worry about that when you're receiving it. Normally, you're not the one paying for the transportation. Indication of who pays for the freight charges for the shipper and the consignee or third party. So on this form, which is the most common one, this bill of lading, it actually tells if it's like COD, which is cash on delivery. That means that you paid for everything that's on that trailer, that's yours. And you're going to pay for the shipping of everything that was on that trailer. But for the most part, the people who shipped it are the ones who are going to pay for it. Okay. So we got, that was the first form, which was the bill of lading, BL. The next form that's the most common is the carrier freight bill. Now, the term that you want to remember here is freight bill. And a carrier, of course, is whatever, a truck or a train or rail or whatever, who sent it to you. So if you hear a freight bill, that's basically the difference between this one and the bill of lading. You're going to pay for the freight, the actual transportation of it. And so in this one, besides having that same information that was on the other one, it also tells you what the rate is. Like a bill of lading, it has a standard document, includes the minimum, the name of the carrier's reference number, the address, description of the materials, the rate. That's not on the other one. The rate, the freight terms and charges due. And so if you get a carrier freight bill, that driver wants paid. That driver's company wants paid for their service. So that's the major difference between a what you call it, a bill of landing or lading and a freight carrier freight bill. Okay. Then you just have a straight delivery receipt. That could be a post-it note. I mean, there's no real format for what those look like, other than they have the same information that those other two documents have. So it could be something that the driver carries, like a receipt book that proves that they delivered, the proof of delivery. And depending on who they work for, they may want to know how long did my driver have to wait. And so then when the driver turns in their documentation, they can get paid for their detention hours that they spent there. But the delivery receipt is one of the ways that we list any types of disagreements with what was supposed to have been there and what was there. And it'll say something like an example in textbook, 10 crushed boxes, contents subject to further inspection. And so it could be something like ball bearings, and it really wouldn't hurt them. And they were going to a manufacturer, so the customer wouldn't have to have perfect boxes, but it could be 10 cases of eggs. And if they're in crushed boxes, well, you're buying some eggs. And so the delivery receipt is where they list discrepancies, like something was missing, something was damaged, something was soiled, there was oil on the corner of a box or something. Anything that you want to mention that makes that product less than described whenever you purchased it. So we got those three documents so far. Now we talk about the airway bill. And when it's put into question form, the way you know they're talking about an airway bill is like if they indicate they want next day service. So a truck, yeah, there's places that it can go and have it there by the next day, but it's not part of the form. You know, it'll just tell what the delivery, estimated delivery day would be. It's usually 24, 48 hours if it's coming from Indiana. But you know you're looking at an airway bill because it still has the same information, the name and address of the shipper, name and address of the consignee or the air company that's doing it. The gross weight, they need to know that for the same reasons. There's only so much weight that the aircraft can carry. And then the service level required, next day or second day. And so you don't need a freight bill here because this airway bill, and the bill part is what you remember. Somebody wants to get paid if it says bill in it. Not only are you going to say, I want it delivered by the next day, but you're going to say who's going to pay for that service, that next day service. And so if I needed something, and Amazon offers this too, they'll say it's going to take until next Friday to get it. However, you can pay an extra $15 and we can have it there by tomorrow. And so that's when you would see this form, is when it's involving air freight and there's a higher level of service that's been applied to it. And then these are the terms, of course, in the chapters. The easiest way to review before you take these quizzes is to look at these. And the bad part about the CLT, because it is for management, it's next level, is these terms are used in like the situational question. And so you'll say, Jill just received a shipment of air freight. Which one of these forms should she be looking for? And then it'll list airway bill, bill of lading, or freight bill, carrier freight bill. And so there'll be situational things like that where you're in the management position and you're making a call on a situation. And sometimes that freaks people out because they're like, wait a minute, didn't just say, what is a bill of lading, and give me like 4 different choices. It repurposes or makes the question in a different format or text to where you're using critical thinking. In other words, they want to see how you apply what we taught you in this course to making decisions or to operating a warehouse or a dock or a transportation terminal. So they're actually testing to see what kind of leadership thinking processes that you imply there. So that's why it's a little different, the test is, and it's a little more difficult. But knowing these terms and knowing how they are used in a process, you're going to be fine. I got high school kids that pass the CLT every semester. They've never worked a job. All right, so we know about material handlers. We already went through that in chapter 3 of the CLA with all those different forklifts and all the different ramps and everything that's involved in it. And then it talks about materials here, but that's cargo and that's anything that's in a shipment. And then the proof of delivery we just went through, it could be on a post-it note if you want it to be, but it's got the information about damages or missing product on it. And so one of the things that they were talking about for material handlers, it's emphasized over here. See if I can blow it up even bigger. Now I can't see it, so I got to take it down one. Is that they're not really quality control experts, but say you're the person that's got the forklift and you just have that trailer door open, it didn't fall on you, that's a good thing. But you're unloading the pallets off of it. And so once you get the stuff off of the trailer, you're checking off what was supposed to be on that trailer as far as the inventory. You're checking the quantities, and then you're checking for damages. And then if you need to, like a box is, the corners messed up, you open the box to look at the actual materials. Normally they have somebody at each dock or somebody that's assigned 2 or 3 docks. They call them either checkers or quality control, QAs. But they kind of take some of that responsibility off of the folks that are actually operating forklifts. You already got a job, and that's to get that trailer unloaded and to get the materials into your warehouse. So somebody else who their attention to detail and their focus is on making sure that the paperwork matches the load, they're the ones that actually are on the dock. It's usually a dock foreman or a dock supervisor. And that's a promotion for you because you're not operating equipment and there's more money and responsibility comes with it. But those opportunities are vast. People that have good attention to detail and that are able to look at documentation and say, okay, there's supposed to be 90 cases of this. Here's the stack, there's only 80. It's that kind of stuff. You can use technology. You're not going around with a pencil and paper and physically touching each case. They have handheld scanners and they have halo scanners that can scan the cases to tell how many are on that trailer. And then when you stage it, you can use a handheld scanner to double check what was supposed to be on that trailer. So you do have technology that helps you keep track of all of this stuff, but you usually are typing or doing some kind of a handwritten delivery receipt if there's a discrepancy. Okay. So I know we're getting long-winded on this, but there are, out of that small little chapter, about 5 or 6 questions about documentation. So the 3 that we looked at, or 4 that we looked at, of course, were the delivery receipt. That's where you're going to tell about problems in the delivery. You got the carrier freight bill. Bill means that they want paid for their services. You got the bill of lading. That's the most common one. And then you've got the airway bill. So that's the 4 different documents they talked about in this chapter. Okay. So let me see if I can pull up my stuff for our class. 27. CLT1. Yummy. It's not there. Of course not. Okay. I don't know why I got fittings for my pool heater in this file, but there they are. I wonder where that went. Let's see. It's in my head. Yeah, I usually have all this stuff figured out before class starts, but I had a doggy experiment going on there.
What certificates do you get in this certified technical supply chain management program?
Okay, so that's a good question. In this one class, this introduction class, you're earning 2 certifications.
Okay.
The next class, which is lean and quality management, you earn the yellow belt certification if you take it with me. Right now, I'm the only instructor that's authorized by Six Sigma. I have a green belt with them that can teach yellow belt. So
Okay.
if you take it with any of our other instructors for lean, then you're only going to get a white belt. So
Okay.
you want to seek me out so I make sure you get the right
I'm
one.
doing you. I'm getting you.
Okay. And I wanted everybody who hasn't had the opportunity to do that yet to sign up for Till One this summer. I'll be teaching it with the yellow belt, or you could take it in the fall. You just want to make sure I'm teaching it.
We're talking martial arts here.
My wife's in the middle of her
Yeah,
math.
I have a question about yellow
Check on
belt
it
real
off.
quick. I received my yellow belt when I was in the Marine Corps.
Yes.
The actual certificate, I have no idea what happened to it. Who would I go through to recover that?
Well, is it
If
on
directly-
a transcript or anything that from your joint service transcript, your JST?
Possibly.
If it's
I
on
got
there,
a
you
thick
don't need
record book, so.
you don't need the certificate if it's on there. I know that the Six Sigma is the major, if you want to call it, representative or third party representative for military certifications, and so they may have record of it if they're in. But if you've already earned it, you don't have to take that class. We just do what they call a crosswalk. We take your certification and it counts as the certification you would have earned in our class. So that saves you from repeating something you already know. So I'll work with you on getting that done. If you can give me an idea of when you took it and where you took it, then I'll help you get that. But the first start would be to go out to jst.mil, jst.dod.mil, which is Joint Service Transcript, Department of Defense at .mil. They'll ask you your enlistment date and what service, and then you can download your whole transcript. ID Tech needs that anyway because there's stuff on there that will keep you from repeating stuff you already know. I got 170 credits for my military service from all the schools that I went through over 25 years. They all didn't help in my degree, but they're on my master degree transcript. I have all of those classes transferred.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's on there. My S1 was my S1 and S4 were really subpar, so I'll have to check to see if they actually got it scanned in there or not.
Yeah, and I think we can recreate that information. So I would hold off on taking that until we give that a try.
Got it. Thank you.
But on the third class that you're going to take, which is the transportation, it's from SC Pro is the certification you're going to get, and it's under transportation management. It's a great class. I mean, just like this one in the lean class, that transportation pro certification gets down into the nuts and bolts on figuring out how to ship, which type of transportation to use, what costs are associated with it, how to do a cost estimate on the different types of transportation, and how to do a time estimate and a a risk assessment. So that is a very worthwhile certification, and it'll get you front door action on working in anything in transportation. The fourth class you're going to take is procurement. It's Logistics 228. That's the only class in the country that you can take in a college and get a procurement certification. Normally, this is reserved for places like Walmart and Amazon and Myers, and even FedEx uses it. It's where you get your certification to be able to buy for a company. And so that course teaches you how to write a contract, how to negotiate with customers and sellers, how to build these relationships with your suppliers and how to increase your profitability by decreasing the cost of procurement. And it's through Next Level Procurement is the name of the certification. And a level 1 will get you a buyer position at any one of those major retailers. A level 2, which they offer you as an option, will get you a corporate level position job as the procurement executive. And then a level 3 lets you teach all of those. And so Chris, my partner, that's the program chair, he has a level 3, and we have placed several dozen students into procurement positions with this certification. It's relatively new to Ivy Tech. Indianapolis, Chris and I developed it. We negotiated, and that's why they were impressed that we just kept coming back with a pro offer and counter offers. We negotiated down from $3,800 is what that costs to get that certification to $320. We said, look, we're not going any higher than our students are paying for their current book. So have a nice day. And so they call back, well, what about 2,000? Well, we don't have $2,000 books, do we? We have $320 books. They call back, well, what about 1,600? And I mean, it took probably about 2 months of them coming back with better and better. I said, look, all you have to do is charge us $320 and we got a deal. And we will fill classes up with folks who will really benefit. You're helping our community college and you're helping your industry by giving us an educational cut rate. And they're like, oh, that's way more than a cut rate or a discount. I said, then you can write it off as give back. I don't care how you come about justifying it. That's what it costs to do business with us. So this is our 3rd year of you guys getting it for $320.
Right on.
And that has got some serious weight on it when that's on your resume. So that's the big hitter certifications in our supply chain program. What's that?
Which certification is that? The one that was
That's the Next Level Procurement certification.
Okay.
And that comes from a company, this Next Level. And there's only like 2 companies that do procurement certifications. That's the biggest one. That's who Walmart, and that's who Amazon, Myers, all of the major retails and the food suppliers, Kroger, all of those use that certification when they hire their corporate level buyers. And so you got that on your resume, that if that's the area you want to go in, that's the thing you have to go in that area. So, and we knew that and they knew it. So yeah, it was a little tough to get through that one, but that was our toughest one to get them to come down on. But they appreciate it more than any of the other ones. They're like, wow, if you guys are this tough to negotiate with, then our certification's in good hands when you guys are teaching it. So that's one of the reasons that they agreed to it. All right, so meanwhile, back at chapter 2, we've got product storage. Now, we saw in that video and some of our other exercises, the different things that like shelving, conveyor belts. We got bulk areas where things can be stacked in pallets in a corner or whatever. But depending on what you're actually storing will lead us to what type of storage equipment that you would need for it. And so we're looking at determining the location of where that material is going to be stored. So if it's a frozen food, it's showing up near our freezer within the warehouse. If it's something like heavy bulk steel for automotive manufacturing, it's probably going to be located somewhere near the milling or the furnace area. So we're first trying to figure out, well, where are we going to set up these shelves or these petitioned areas for the larger items. So step 1 is, where's it going to go at? What's the location inside the actual center? And it needs to be somewhere where you can get material like aisles. You can get between the different aisles of the racking systems so that your orders can be selected. They call it picking, and they can actually fulfill what you need to manufacture or what a customer orders from you. And you folks in Amazon can probably give us a glimpse of what your order picking and what your selection looks like. And most of it's automated. It's on these little bots that carry around shelving, isn't it? Nobody knows? Okay. So when you're inside a warehouse, it's just like a library. You're going to have aisle 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D. They'll all be in sequential order. And then within those aisles, there'll be sections that would hold a pallet, so it's like 4 foot wide, and each one of those are numbered or lettered. So if I said, go to aisle 6, you go across to aisle 6, and then pick slot C, you go down to the third one and be designated 1C. And so then there would be different shelf levels, like if that first level had C, then the second level may have CC, and the third level would have 3 Cs, or they would start from the opposite end and say W instead of WXYZ if they went up to the second and third level. So once you've got it all marked where the aisles are and what the pick positions are, then you know where stuff goes and where to find it after you put it there. So it's important that you understand the layout of your distribution center or your warehouse to know where to find it. Luckily, we have this automated system we talked about in Chapter 9 that's called the warehouse management system. And so anything that comes in, when you receive it, it gets entered into the inventory, and then the computer, the software will say, well, we've got that stuff stored on aisle 5, pick section E. And so when people come to pick it up from the dock, they actually know where that's supposed to go inside the warehouse. They'll either get a printed sheet that's like a put away is what they call it, or there'll be a something loaded through software where you can hear it. It'll be like a Talkman. And so there's a voice saying, go to aisle 6, and you go to aisle 6, place and pick slot C. And when you get there, there's usually 2 numbers or 2 letters that are like a password, and you say Bravo Delta or B and D, and that lets the computer know you're standing at the right place when you put that product on it. We also have pick to light and put to light, and so you pick up a load and you're saying your color is green, and you could have green, yellow, red, pink, purple, whatever, but you're going to go down an aisle and you'll stop at the first one, and it's on your pallet. It's got everything that's on that aisle on your pallet. And so when you're putting your stuff away, you come to the first flashing light and you look in there, and it's paper towels. And so you put all the paper towels on that one. Then you press the flashing light, and the next light will come on to tell you where to go down to and put that particular product on the shelf. It works exactly opposite when you're selecting it. When you take something off the shelf and you press that you've got it on your pallet, then it takes you to the next position to take the item off of the shelf and put it on your pallet. So all of that follows under warehouse management system. So how do we figure out what goes on what shelf? Well, if we got the same story about boxes of toilet paper and boxes of ball bearings that weigh 500 pounds, that comes into play here. Because we don't want, one pallet of toilet paper wouldn't last very long. You remember that from the pandemic, right? So we may need like 3 pallet wide and 2 deep. We may need 6 pallets of toilet paper available at all times. And so that's somewhere where we're looking at the mass of it, how big it is. Whereas the ball bearings, we wouldn't want to put those on the 4th level, 4th shelf up, because they weigh so much that when they come off, if something was to fall, you could damage the product and kill people. So we want to make sure if it's something that's heavy, that it's always closest to the floor. So those are considerations they look at about where you place paper towels or ball bearings or what have you.
May I share something with you
Yeah,
that I
please.
noticed? I DoorDash, and I used to be with Walmart, but I left before they started their order picking for customers, for shoppers. But I didn't notice until I did the video assignment with Amazon. But if you look at Walmart, they laid their store out with the same number systems as Amazon did in their warehouse, with the yellow cards of aisle number A and what it represents and B. I didn't really notice that. I seen it by shopping Walmart, and I always wondered what that was until I got into this class, because I've been away from that side of it. And then I've never worked in warehousing that long, but Amazon lays their whole warehouses with the lettering and the number system too.
Well, I can tell you that which came first, Walmart by 30 years. So Amazon stole it from them probably, but Walmart actually is who invented the warehouse management system.
Okay.
And think about it. Before Walmart, we had mom and pop stores. You had some small chains of stuff. You didn't have this monster that Walmart is.
Right.
The European Union, when you had all of those separate countries become under one trade and one border crossing for, they all cooperated together.
Right.
They hired Walmart to come over and say, which country should we have distribution centers in and warehouse, and what route should we use for resupplying all these major cities? Walmart is why the EU was laid out like it is and why it's successful. It's one of our companies that's commercially located over there. It failed in some of the countries. Walmart did not make it in Germany because they didn't adapt to what the German citizens wanted in a store. They didn't carry the stuff that they bought, and they tried to pack everything in like we do. We got these box stores with 5 million line items in it.
Right.
Germans don't want that. They want to go to a meat shop for meat. They want to go to a health and beauty aid store for health and beauty aids.
Yep.
They don't want that monster variety, and Walmart's failed there. And so, and there were some other things about the competition of labor, and Germany made them hire their workforce and pay their workforce wages and all of the benefits. It just was not successful. And so, even though it's the most powerful economy in the EU, and Walmart set up how their economy works as far as their distribution centers and everything, Walmart didn't make it there. They still have other companies and other distribution centers and warehouses that use the Walmart model, but them personally, they didn't make it. So, and that's their one, they're still trying to go back and try to, well, what if we did this? No, that wouldn't work either. So here's how
they're tough-headed. My
Here's
son
how-
lives there, so I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 5 years.
Yeah, my kid's in Stuttgart and his wife's German.
So-
I can say that.
We've got different forms of where things are stored, and it mentions bulk here. When it's something that's huge that wouldn't really fit going onto a shelf, it still would maybe be on 2 or 3 pallets. Say it's couches. That normally would be tough to put shelves full of couches. So they have special types of shelving that's made for that, or they put it in these bulk stacking. And then they go the height of the building. So most of these warehouses, they don't have flat roofs. They have a pitched roof. And so the shelving can only go up so far. And then maybe in the center of the warehouse, you got an extra row that goes up into that peak part. But what can actually go up there is another thing that has to be worked out. It has to be something that you may not need every day. It might be something you can stock for like months ahead of time. And that's where they put it. Or it could be something that's lightweight, so it's not putting a lot of stress on the machinery. The higher up the machine lifts, the more of a chance of it tipping over. And so if they have to go up that high, they want it to be something that's not stressing the maximum lift on that truck. So stackability, I mean, if you got perfectly square boxes, you can make beautiful pallets, but that's never happening. They're all different shapes, right? And then you want to make sure that you're not going to damage them by crushing or not having them in there right. And then the rotation, like I was saying, if it's something on that very top shelf, it's not perishable. It's not something that if it doesn't leave the warehouse within 90 days, it's thrown out. But so there's the higher it is, the longer it can stay there, the lighter it is, the easier it is to stack, all that kind of stuff. So that comes into the decision making about where it's going to go within the warehouse. So it talks about materials moved from manufacturing. They're likely to be moved and stored at least initially on pallets. And then if it's materials for grocery distribution, like cans of soup or gallons of milk or whatever, it's usually they're stored and handled with in cases. And so we did the exercise where you say, or maybe you are in this one, I'm senile sometimes, but you say you got a box of cereal. Now you got to go back to how did that cereal come to the store? Well, it came in a case. So there was like 12 boxes of cereal in that case. And then how did the store get it? It came from a warehouse on a pallet that had maybe 10 cases of cereal. So you don't need 144 boxes or a lot is what they call that. You don't need 144 boxes of cereal. You only need 10 boxes of cereal. There's different levels of packaging on the process of that coming to you. So when it leaves Battle Creek, Michigan or Kellogg, Michigan, wherever the hell that crap's made, it comes off the line, it gets put in boxes. And then when at the end of the line, they get put in cases. And then before it leaves that actual bakery or whoever is making it, it actually, the cases get stacked in pallets so they can go on a truck or a train or a plane or whatever. And so knowing those different levels of how that's packaged also plays in how you're going to set up your warehouse and where it's going to be stored and how easily it's going to be accessed. So it mentions the rack, and that's basically a shelf. It's heavier duty. It's big enough to hold these pallets and the weight that comes with anything that goes on that pallet. If you went to like these wholesale warehouses where you can buy food and stuff like Costco's or Sam's Club, you can see that it's got different shelving than like Walmart does. Where Walmart's got single items you can pull off. You go to Costco, you're buying a case of something or a huge 5-gallon bucket of mayonnaise or something. And so depending on if it's a wholesale or storage type, then you'd have different type racks than you would for retail, where you're just taking single servings out. And this has some pictures here. This one, let's see if I can blow that up just enough to show the rack, is a single depth. In other words, you can put one pallet in. On the right side, you got an aisle, and then you go to the left side, you got one pallet in. So that rack is 2 pallets wide, but it's only 1 deep on each one of those aisles that you walk down. You can have them as much as 4 deep, depending on what you're dealing with, but the most common one is 1 deep. Now, if we were talking about paper products like paper towels, toilet paper, napkins, paper plates, normally those are 2 deep because you need to have more of the material in that one space. And so they put 1 pallet of the product in, and it's on gravity fed wheels, the pallet is. Then they take the second pallet and they push it up into the rack. And so as you use everything out of that first one and it gets empty, they pull the pallet out, and then the second one rolls down in position so they can pull cases off of that or single servings off of that. This other drawing is
of question about the storage.
Yes.
Like for example, deep reach, drive-in, like pushback. It looks like as if we can combine them, no? As if like we're talking about same area of storing, because it's just like the depth of the. I'm gonna do either 2 cases or 3 cases or 10 cases or 2 pallets deep. Is it like
okay? That's a good question. One facility doesn't have all the same racks. And so depending on what section or what type of product is going to be stored will dictate what type of racking system. And so if you're having a aisle that has double deeps, it's got 2 pallets deep, then either it's against the wall, so there's not an aisle on the other side. In other words, if it was a regular setup, there'd be 1 pallet on each side that could be accessed from an aisle, so people could pull it out. But if it's against the wall, this is normally where they position these 2 deep pallets, because you can't get behind it. That rack is up against the wall. So that's where they put all of the items that need to be stored in larger quantities, where they can put 2 pallets deep. This one that we're looking here with a narrow aisle or a drive-in rack, you can see that it looks like those are a lot closer together, the aisles are. And what they do is like this is something that you have hundreds of pallets instead of just having the 2 pallets. This aisle is just got stacks and stacks of pallets of toilet paper. And so what they do is when they get the stuff off of trucks is they bring in a bulk load, and that's got like 4 pallets. No, it's 8 pallets high. They're stacked two per. And so they take those 8 pallets of toilet paper and they put them on this drive-in rack. They take the forklifts all the way down to the end of that aisle, and then they set those pallets down. And as they need them, you know, like they're filling up a truck that's going to go out to like a Walmart, they need 4 pallets load. Then they can go down this drive-in aisle, and they're actually in the middle instead of going on. Nothing's put on a shelf. It's all setting on the floor. They go down this aisle and pick up the pallets that they need to put on that load. And so if you got large bulk items that may fall over if they didn't have some kind of supports like these racks on the sides, then this is how your warehouse will be set up in those settings. So I've seen them where they have all the different types of shelving, all the way down to like looks like a jewelry box that you pull out, and it actually has jewelry in it. And then it goes all the way up to these larger bulk sections. So depending on how big a facility is and what type of material is handled in different sections, you could see all of this in one building. So this one has a picture of the pushbacks I was talking about. And if you look at this, it has 2 pallets on the right side. And if you look behind it on the left side, there's another aisle back there. And they'll have 2 pallets on that side. And so they could either have 2 pallets on each side of a different product, or like what is set up in most areas, it's 4 deep and it's all the same product. And so I could load or take off the shelf on either side and get those cases that I needed of tissue paper. You notice these are in wooden crates. And normally items that are put in wooden crates are too big to be put in a pallet, or it's military type equipment, or it's automotive parts, like there could be engines or transmissions in there, or differentials or what have you. But it's when it's put in those cases like that, wooden crates, it's to make it easier to stack and handle and to keep it from getting damaged. But those bad boys are heavy, and you can tell by the thickness of the metal on the shelving and everything that they've got some weight stacked on there. And just in this instance here, we got a shelf that's on the floor. You got a mid-level shelf. You got a 3rd shelf, and you actually have a top shelf, a 4th shelf. And so they're using like a 40-foot lift for the truck, and the ceiling height in there is over 40 foot because they have to be able to pick up the pallets to pull it off of that 4th shelf.
I've seen that before at the Home Depot. They have wooden crates like that to store their extra lawnmowers that they don't have out for sale yet.
Yeah. And it seems like every time I go, some poor guy's got to get a ladder and get the stuff that I need because it's not replenished on the shelf. But that cantilever it was talking about here, you see this in like Lowe's and Home Depots and different things.
Mm-hmm.
And these are shelves that are designed to hold like wall boarding or drywall that's 4 foot by 8 foot, or piping, copper tubes, or even PVC pipes sometimes are on these, but they're heavier weight and they're made to hold a bulk of something that they can actually design to get the forks under that entire bulk, so the shelf's open. And you'll see those cantilevers usually in the Home Depot kind of thing. So this mobile sliding rack, I think this has got a picture over here. Yeah. If you notice all these aisle numbers, they're all crunched together. There's no way to walk between any of those. Well, to get the most bang for your buck on how much you can store in a warehouse, they have these movable shelves. And what they do is they actually put the pallet jack against the shelf. It's got like a bumper at the bottom, and they can go forward and push that shelf out of the way. And so it creates an aisle that they can get to the items between aisle 31 and 32. Now they can get to those items. And if they wanted to get to something in aisle 30, they just raise the forks up at the very bottom and they pull the rack away from aisle 30. And so they can actually create a space between each one of those different aisles. This would be nerve-wracking if you had to go out there and move each one of those rows to get to one order of something that you're trying to get. But depending on what you hold in your warehouse, you may only say this one warehouse I looked at, one of my students helped set up, and he managed, it was for cruise ships. And every 7 days, they had to ship out something like 15,000 gift packets for the gifts packets that they put in their rooms. And they'd have stuff like soaps, they'd have shampoos and candy and different stuff, suntan lotion, bug spray. They had all of this stuff you needed if you were on a cruise. And so they had 7 days to put together 15,000 of these. And so they had this kind of a setup in there. And this is basically the only place I've ever seen that. But they would have one whole aisle of just insecticide, for bug spray. And then on the next one, they'd have all these different scented soaps. Next one, they'd have all the different shampoos. And so they'd have these boxes that they were building, the 15,000 boxes that were going to go to these ships. And they'd fill each one of those boxes with a row of the stuff that they needed. But
in Walmart, at Walmart for layaway, when they used to have the major layaways, they had their layaway products upstairs in the mezzanine, and they built this type of racking system so you can pull it because it's space saving.
Yeah,
and you can pull the racks apart, and they're A, B, C, D labeled by alphabet or third or number, and you just pull it apart and say you needed to get into 29, like on the picture, you just pull 30 and 31 down and go into the aisle 29, pull the product, go and get it to the customer.
and you notice most of those, they wanted you to give them like a day's notice so they could have somebody go back there and get that out. Or you'd be waiting a while if you wanted to come in and pick up your layaway. And that really, because they don't charge to layaway, that space costs money. And so that would be about the only way they could make that work. Otherwise, they'd have to charge a premium for people who are using their layaway. The bad part about that, I can remember back in the day, I'm an old guy, is that you could put something on layaway and have it paid for and ready to go, like for a holiday or a birthday or whatever. But if it ever came on sale during that 3 months you were paying on it, it didn't matter. You paid whatever the price was when you put it in there. And you usually could not put sale items on layaway. So they got you there. They charged you full retail. You didn't get any kind of discounts for using layaway. So we talked about the cantilever rack. This is pretty interesting, this repack. This is shelving or bins or drawer storage where you have small items that you're going to put into an order. And they list here, it's like nuts and bolts, electronics. And they really do have them that are all the way up to high value items like jewelry, watches, and some components in computers are high value, like the chip kits and the hard drives and things of that nature. And so they have to replenish these shelves within a drawer to get the orders ready for customers. So if you were building a Dell computer and you want to have a certain card for the graphics and a certain sound card and a certain number for memory size on your hard drive, then they would have a selection like this where customer A gets shelf number 1A, 2B, 3C to get all the components to put together that Dell computer. That's probably a poor example. This would be something like a more personalized, smaller company would use that. Dell, they just build them right on the assembly line, exactly how the customer wants them. Just like if I ordered a brand new Corvette, I could get black leather interior with a red steering wheel and pink hubcaps. If I ordered it from the factory that way, mine would run after a production run. They do all these special runs to get what the actual customer ordered in their cars. This is something that is on the test, and it has a weird sound to it, but it's called kitting. And it's basically putting together all of these nuts and bolts that match, and they usually get sold together, so that when the person orders 10 millimeter bolts with 10 millimeter nuts and 10 millimeter washers, they've got those all put together in one area as a kit. If you ordered a lamp and you wanted to have the light bulbs for that lamp to go with it, those are all put together so that when the person is picking the order or selecting the order, everything they need to put that together is in one area. And you see that when you go to, what's the big store from, it's got all the boxes of wood furniture that are flat.
IKEA.
They're set up that same way with the kitting stuff. And so I could go in and get an end table or a coffee table or a shelf and use the same legs and the same knobs and the same everything. It's just used in a different utilitarian way. And one of the things we did a case study on IKEA is that when they came to the US, all of their furniture was shorter because of the market that they supported before. A countertop in the US is like 43 inches. A countertop in Asia and Europe is like 36 inches. And so there was like 8 or 10 inches difference, and people are like, hey, what the hell is this table for? The same thing on their bedding. You know, we have a twin, a standard, queen, and a king. They have theirs set up by how wide and how long they are in meters. And so people are like, what size bedding am I buying here? Is this for a standard or a king or a queen? So IKEA had to, because we still use the standard measurement instead of metric, they had to go in and relabel and package and signage so Americans would understand it. And they had to actually come up with longer legs for things like chairs and tabletops so that it get to this countertop height that Americans want. Chairs, the same thing. They're not wide, you know, because we're all lard butts, I guess. But European furniture is for smaller living spaces, and Asian furniture. They're apartment size furnishings. And so when they came into our market, it was a whole different, I mean, single folks and dorms and stuff like that, it was fine. But to get into the family furnishings, they had to change the dimensions of some of their kits. So it was an interesting case study. It cost them a ton of money to be able to service US customers. Shelving, we've already talked about. It goes on the racks. And here's a picture of one of those drawer setups where they're all divided up with small parts for electronics or nuts and bolts. And there's aisles that you go to in these home improvements where you can pick out a stainless steel washer that'll fit on like a boat anchor or something. But it's got such a selection, you can get down to that exact size, that exact material. And you're going to pay a little more for it, but it has a vast collection there. And this talks about some of them are lined with rubber matting, so when you pull the drawer out, everything don't just slide all over the place. And one of the things that we recommended in like your Amazon story about the loads coming in and they're all over the place, is we actually helped design rubber mats that went inside the trailers. And then they had inflatable, looked like a mattress, inflatable pads that went on both sides of the pallets. And so when they put it on the floor, it didn't move forward or backwards. It was like skid proof. And then the airbags that we put on the left and right, which were not high budget stuff, you can just use them once, or you could get some heavier duty ones. But just adding those components to the loads, when they got to the other end, it was where it was when it left. And the cost savings and damaged product, plus it was less of a risk for people that were handling the materials at the destination, and everything was where it was supposed to be. So when it came off and it was supposed to be a pallet full of grapefruit juice, it didn't have cans of other stuff spilled into it. So that's something you might want to mention at your work, that, hey, why don't we put rubber decking in our trailers and use airbags? It would save them a lot of money. But they know what they're doing. They're the ones running the country, the world now. So palletized storage, we talked about that. Pallets are made of these different materials based on what they're going to be setting on. Does everybody know what a pallet is? You trip over them at every store you go to, they're setting in the
Yes.
aisle. So you've probably seen the majority of them are wood, because that's low cost, they're pretty durable, they can handle 1,500 pounds. That's no more than what you need to have on a pallet anyway. But then you have them that are made of cardboard. And a lot of times they're going to have lightweight things like paper products, light bulbs that don't need wood, because they're not lifting weight, they're just lifting mass, they're lifting a larger item. And they still need to be able to get a machine under it to move it around within the organization. The great thing about this cardboard or corrugated paper, it's recyclable, low cost, it's sanitary. And so a lot of times when you see stuff like meat that could have stuff leak on it and they don't want to reuse it because of sanitation reasons, they'll use corrugated paper to make their pallets. And then they can just recycle them. They can, destroy them, shred them, burn them, whatever. Rubber and plastic in the health warehousing, the majority of the items that you're going to move product with is either in plastic or rubber totes. And then the pallets themselves are made of plastic or rubber. And that's so that they can subject them to high temperature cleaning. They can steam them, but it keeps them more washable. Trying to wash wood, if you spill oil on wood, you got wood with oil on it for the rest of its useful life. You spill oil on corrugated paper, cardboard, it's toast. But if you spill oil on rubber or plastic, it can be washed off. And so that's when they're used, when it's a sanitation, food, or medical type of procedure stuff. Metal, you'll see those when you got engines, transmissions, heavy parts for like automotive or manufacturing. Even if you're sending like, say, a pallet full of metal, like copper pipes or steel pipes or aluminum siding or whatever, something that has a very high weight to it needs a very heavy duty pallet. The great thing about the metal pallets is they don't wear out. Usually they got a very long shelf life. Rubber and plastic, depending on how rough they're handled, they can have a limited shelf life. When it comes to the wood, if they can use them 3 times, then they're considering that successfully utilizing them. They got their money's worth out of them. But the heavy loads that go on them and the forklifts that are people operating them are crushing those every day. A wooden pallet dies a cruel death. So those are something that they get 3 uses out of them, then it works. Corrugated paper, cardboard, that's usually a one-time use and it's gone. So depending on how you want to impact the environment, you want to pick something that you can reuse or you want to use something that's completely different. They actually have opportunities where you can just use one sheet of paper, and you use special equipment that has like a spatula that would slide under that one sheet of paper to pick up a pallet load. And so then you don't have as much waste in the recycling and all that. So when we're
Isn't
looking
metal, wouldn't metal be more expensive up front, but in the long run, you're able to use it over the course of years versus weeks. So wouldn't
Well,
the savings be much more?
it loses it on shipping because now you have a
heavy.
pallet that weighs more than the product, maybe.
Products
If you
are
got 10 of these pallets and they each weigh 300 pounds, you just took 3,000 pounds out of your load ability. But
Mhm.
there is a trade-off there. So if I'm lifting something that weighs 1,000 pounds every day, that's the only thing I can go to. A wooden one wouldn't do it. They'd be a one-time shot. But you got a good point. When it comes to manufacturing, I'm Honda USA, and I'm making parts for assembly in Greenwood. Or is it Green something else? Yeah, down there. So Greensburg. So I'm using my own pallets because we're doing all the casting of the transmission housings and the pistons and all this heavy duty, high weight components. We're making all of those parts here and we're shipping into our assembly plant. Those pallets are going to make their way back to me because our trucks are going there and then they're coming back to where we're at. So in manufacturing, yeah, metal pallets are used for that very thing. They're more durable. They need them because of the weight that they're moving. And there is a cost savings associated with that because once they spend the money once, like you said, then they're in the system where they can keep using them over and over again. So durability, weight capacity, special applications for like sanitation or, disposability. Let's see. This is showing what's showing up at those doors that we were talking about, right? They actually have an Olympics or a rodeo for material handlers in Indianapolis every year. The team that wins gets like $5,000 per person, and it keeps going up every year. And so like Amazon, their different sites will have teams in it, and FedEx and all these other major shippers will send a team of like 4 material handlers to these competitions. We want to start entering, when we get our lab up and running, we want to start entering some of these other competitions. In October, there's a case study competition that's put on in Indianapolis, and we've won that. Our Ivy Tech students have won that every year. What happens is they give you this problem, and they give you 3 days in the Hyatt to come up with a solution to the problem. And then you present that problem to the company who has the problem, and they pick the best solution. And Ivy Tech's teams, we've sent a team down there every year, have won it every year. And what do they win? $5,000 in cash. They can do what they want with. And so I'll get those dates out to you, and if you can work it out with your employer. A lot of employers say, yeah, I want my people to enter that, so we got bragging rights that our employees won that. But it's like a 3-day commitment. It's like a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the second week in October. And it's at the Hyatt, and all the major employers are there. And they have like a dinner where you actually get formally introduced to all the different companies and who their representatives are. And they talk to you. I mean, you're going to take resumes and transcripts with you. And those folks that are in that competition get some super, super job offers.
Is it almost like risk management?
It is, but like the last one they had was a major storm that closed down the ports in Texas and California. We got ships setting out at sea with stuff that needs to come in. How do you get it in? And I'm your customer. I'm in Indianapolis. Tell me how to get that stuff in. And it was actually happening at the time. And so we go against Purdue, IU, University of Indianapolis, University of Indiana, Evansville, Indiana State. Last one had 18 universities and Ivy Tech. And we're allowed to send 4 teams because how big Ivy Tech is. IU and Purdue can send 2 teams, but we beat master degree holders. Their supply chain master degree holders had their butts handed to them by our associate level, still working on it, associate level students. The reason is the majority of you folks, I'd say more than 50% majority, are in the industry. And you can think of what it looks like at the ground level, the floor. What would this problem look like if it was where I work or where I have worked? The folks you're competing against have never been inside the building. And so they're thinking of the academic answer, like pi equals 3 square over 4 to the nth. So they'll turn in some kind of an equation and the people will say, okay, that's telling me how much weight and how long it would take to get there, but how? What's the transportation mode? And they don't know anything about as far as the real life stuff. So that's how our advantage. So much so that they were embarrassing Purdue and IU that they changed how the teams are formed. Now, when you get there, they go, okay, we're dividing up Ivy Tech's teams. One of you go to a Purdue team, one of you go to an IU team, one of you go to a DePaul team, one of you go to. So now our students are part of the 4-year university teams. Finish in the top 3 even. So our folks last year, we sent 8 people. And
Hello?
Are you there, Mel? Hello? I think
Hello,
your
you're
audio
here.
broke.
I think he lost his connection.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
having a bad internet connection, he said.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Are you still there? Jeff, I need some input about the exam. I'm have appointment like Thursday, and if you scare me when you tell me.
I don't have any copies. They won't, I tried to print the copy of the some of the what I missed, and they don't. They do a lot of teams, a lot in teams, a lot in safety. Know your fire extinguishers, how they are, A, B, what fire would you use on grease and oil, not just a B, but you can also use A, and you can also use C. That chart that he gave us, read that. They want to know what the warning color was and what the caution color they want those. No, what is it? The 2 people discussing? No, none of those. No discussion.
No. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the man and the woman, they're discussing.
Yeah.
Who's the people? I can't even think of them right now.
Mark and Sarah.
Mark and
Yeah,
Sarah.
Mark and Sarah. None of them.
Yeah, Mark and Sarah.
None of them. So.
well, and that's what I got feedback from last semester is they took those out, but then Connor had one that had them in it. So they must have a variety that rotate through that you could take a different version of the test. But
yeah, I had at least 3 of them.
But I can
Austin,
tell you that,
did you take it?
Not yet.
No.
I can tell you that if you go through those quizzes and you look at that textbook at the terms and at the stuff that we do in our projects, that you're going to be fine. I mean, like I say, we have a 98 point something% pass rate. The next one, the one we're in now, I've got to take it up a notch, but you're going to feel confident after you get through this first one that you can knock it down.
I got
Okay.
it at Thursday.
You'll do okay.
Okay, thank you.
And if you don't, you can redo it.
$60.
You'll know what you're looking for.
I'd rather you go through it and get it done the first time. It's $60 to
too.
retake it.
Me too.
So we got the crates, containers, wire mesh, baskets, corrugated cardboard. We may have talked about this before, that Amazon's working on a recyclable plastic that shrink wraps around your package to save them space within the trucks, and they print the label right on that shrink wrap. They're trying to move completely away from cardboard within the next 3 years. The drawback right now is the shrink wrap that they're using is not recyclable. So they're trying to get more and more of it worked where it is recyclable. There's even, I've seen an article out there on the Supply Chain Daily that they have a plastic that can be dissolved and gets put back into a more liquidy version that makes it recyclable, and you can handle it, the containers of it when you're recycling it, a higher mass of it because it liquefies the plastic. And they just add water or vinegar or something to it and breaks it down. So there's our different containers. Here, there's a picture of that specialty.
You're not sharing your screen.
What's that? You're not
Not
sharing?
sharing your screen.
Oh, after I lost it, it didn't come back. Yeah, I dropped off for a second there. My hotspot became unavailable. I don't know how that happens. It's sitting right next to the computer. But what I was showing here was the, yeah, that's where I was at, was this attachment for the forklift that picks barrels up. And those get, when you talk about storage, they get stacked usually on top of each other. So the barrel tops and bottoms are made to interlock, but there are specialty racking setups for these to make sure they don't tip over and that they're kept out of the weather and those kind of extremities. This is the specialized equipment for slip sheet. Can you still not see it? Hello?
No, you're sharing it.
Okay. I'm gonna see if I can make this maybe a little bit bigger and move it over, but I'm having a
Mr.
problem.
Yancey,
Yeah.
do they use a magnet on that forklift when they pick up the drums? That's kind of what it looks like.
It kind of has like the ones that I've seen have like that 6-pack plastic thing that goes around Cokes, except it's metal and it opens up, and so it's like a figure 8 that's divided in half, and then when they put it on there, they pull the forks together and it clamps around the things.
I mean, it would have to be perfectly in its spot in order to stack it. Otherwise, they would topple.
And when they set it, this fork or this attachment down on it, they can still move left, right, up and down until they get them centered where they need them. And once they're centered like they're supposed to be, once they stack them, when they go back to get them the next time, they're already spaced where they're supposed to be. But yeah, they have other equipment besides this that they move barrels and stuff with. This is probably the most crude one. I've seen them with chains that come down and go under the barrel. And so they pick it up like a fishing net or something. This one is the interesting one with the slip sheet. And so they have these 2 forks that are very thin and wide. They can go under a pallet load. The pallet's not there. They just got a piece of paper, like a sheet of paper. And so when they pick it up, this little, if you want to call that a book holder or a backstop or whatever, that collapses all the way back to the forks, and then they slide those thin forks under that sheet. And when they pick it up and they set it down where they want it, they use this hydraulic push to like a bookend to just slide it off of the forks, like a spatula is cleaning it off of there. And so then if they're putting stuff in containers, they don't have any pallets that are going to take up space or weight. And depending on what it is, it works fine if it's just got this paper dividing one pallet load with the next one. So
It's like a battering ram.
yeah, it kind of does, don't it? So then they talk about the carousels, like if you've ever went to a dry cleaners and they're looking for your order, they press the button until it comes around alphabetical or number, whatever. That's kind of how these carousels work. They load them up and they've got different product on them. And so you as you're a material handler, you don't have to go wandering around in that warehouse to find it. It comes to you. It's going to eventually, whatever product it is that you're looking for, it's going to come around to your position, and you can either hit a stop or you can just, it's slow enough moving, you can pick one or two out that you need to fulfill whatever your customer's needs are. And so they have them that are horizontal and vertical. They talk about these vertical ones are like dumb waiters, where you can put something in it and it'll go up 2 or 3 or 4 floors or what have you. And so you can have material in multi-floor warehouses, and you can have that material brought to your location based on what you enter in to have delivered to that particular spot. These are vertical lift modules, and you can see they are, if you want to call it like a pop machine, where they can just have these stacks and stacks and stacks of the different types of materials that are within this confined area. At the very bottom, they're going to have the people that are selecting the materials, the orders. And so the refill that, are you done? You want to take it? Yeah. Oh, my wife's taking over. I must be getting close on time. I am, Lord. Okay. He fell asleep on me. I bored him to sleep. So hopefully I'm not throwing you folks that way. He was up all night. He was quite tired from being up all night. So in this picture here, we've got the ASRSs, and they're used for storage or resupply, but they load them from the top and then they're gravity fed to the bottom. And so there's a lot of, every bit of the space in this area is used. All of those pallets will gradually be brought down to the floor level, but they're loaded. Normally there's some type of a lift mechanism that takes them up to the top to drop them in. It's not a forklift. It'll be like an elevator looking thing. And this warehouse that I toured out in Plainfield that belongs to IU Medical, they have the whole corner of their warehouse. I'm talking like 100 by 100 yard section of it that is set up like this, but it goes all the way to the top. It has these cages, and there's robots on the very top that have wheels and a battery and like an antenna. And so they feed into their software, hey, I need 500 surgical gowns. And that robot will go over to the middle of that big cube where the surgical gowns are, and it'll pick up tote boxes that fit under the robot. It's able to pick them up. It'll drive over and set it on top of another row and then come and pick up the next one. So it can go down like 100 feet to get to the box in that cube that has the robes, gowns in it. Bring that up and it'll take it over to the front of that cube and drop it in there for the human that's at the bottom to have the 100 gowns delivered to them. What happens is when they know what the orders are for the next day, like the number of surgeries and the number of patients they expect to come in or leave, so they know what kind of bedding or what kind of sanitation supplies or operating supplies that they need. These robots work all night, putting everything in order so they don't have to dig down 20 different boxes to get that one box that has the gowns in it. They know that that order is going to be needed at 10 a.m. So it's like the 6th or 7th order. And so it's stacked up at the top so that the robots can get to it a lot easier. And there's like 30 or 40 of those robots on top of that cube running in every direction, left, right, forward, backward. And they can do the work of a 500 person warehouse, but they're not paying them overtime. There's nobody getting their back injured. There's nobody that's taking a break. That cube over there is doing all of the work that's labor intensive that would have to be done by people. So once that tote, say operating room one's tote with all the stuff they need, it's going to go to Bedford's hospital. And when it's full, then it gets put on a carousel, pushed down on rollers to the door that it's going to actually be loaded on to ship out that day. So it's very sanitary in there. It's very brightly lit, and all of this stuff is automated so that they can work with fewer number of people. The people that were there, I had conversations with them. They love their job. They don't work weekends. The computers, the robots do, but they don't. And they have regular hours, like they go in at 9, they're off at 5. So the human part of it is there for the shipping out. They are there when the trucks come in, they take the stuff off, they put it into the robot's inventory, and then they're there to take the stuff that's been sorted and put in the totes to the off the door and put them in a trailer. So they don't have to get into the handling of it in between receiving and shipping. These different racks, they're given descriptions here. And we also heard somebody talk about these mezzanines or mezzanines. They're
Jeffrey.
What is it?
It's Jeffrey who mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's space that's not otherwise used. And an example that Jeff gave us was up above in the rafters of the warehouse, they had the layaway section up there. But these could be offices. They could be conveyors that are working overhead, like 30 or 40 feet up out of the way. I toured a FedEx and a, what's the other competition? I'm having a senior moment. Yeah, their competition. And right where the trucks were being loaded, they had conveyors that were coming from the roof down to that area so that they could go above all the shelving, all the people that are moving around and everything, and they could move stuff from receiving. When they unloaded the truck, they could ship it out and it'd be sorted on these conveyors to go to the section that it needed to go to for shipping. And so they avoided all the congestion and everything by having these mezzanines that went above all the usable working space to get it to where it's supposed to go. I have to say, this is the first time that my wife's beat me teaching. She's usually still in there teaching after we get done. So she must have had a very attentive, or maybe exactly the opposite class that was going on.
We talked a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I getting back? Yeah, you're going after her. Okay. Yummy for me. He's all wide awake now. He was asleep. She took him out to pee.
What type of dog is he again?
Is Chow, is Chow the mom or the dad?
Chow's the dad.
Okay. A black lab and a Chow. And I guess they know for certain that that's the two culprits. They lived close to each other or whatever, and there was this, they eloped. But apparently the mother, the owner of the mother dog, wanted that, it's a pure breed, wanted to breed it with another Chow, and so she donated the pups to the pound up there. But they had them adopted before they ever took them in. I mean, they did a good campaign, you know, on marketing them and stuff. And we had to apply, and they had to interview us. I'm like, I'm not adopting the person that you are. I'm like, so okay, well, okay, I guess I am. But yeah, that happened. This is my daughter's dog. Yeah, notice who's taking care of it. That's how that works. Okay, so we've got these other types of racking or storage systems. This automated storage and retrieval system, I see that in play in Amazon, and they have things that look like pallets that are under a load. They pick that up and they bring it to the people who are putting the orders together. And then once that order is, they take the stuff off of it, they want it goes back to a designated spot in the warehouse. Those can be manned, or they could be automated where there's nobody involved in it. The man on board, those have operators. And so, and that's how they simplify it, or they say it's a machine that can be manually or automatically controlled. but there's an operator present on the machine itself. And so it's going to have somebody that's with that machine. And that's what I see that's the most common one, because you want to make sure that if there's something that falls in the aisle or somebody is stopped unexpectedly, that there's somebody that a human reaction that can happen there. Gets into the automated stuff, but that's basically the chapter in itself. I want to pull up the very quickly the exercise that went with it. Seems like I remember where I have it stored. It's usually on my fob, and I got this dog in my face here. So we're going to go out to not Opus. We're going to go out to MSSC. Where have I got it on there? Okay.
I'm a CNC. I have a question.
Yeah.
This year with CLT now, when I'm taking the test, the quizzes with the CLT, when I like to go back to the quiz to see what I'm doing, only the CLA stuff is posted there on the page. I don't know how to get to the CLT.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I
Well,
don't know how to.
Let's show you that. Back over in our class, that message I just pulled up with the textbook, it's in our announcements. It says CLT textbook for weeks 5 through 8 is the name of the announcement. It says attached is your textbook for the CLT. Don't forget to register the code for the CLT at OpusWorks. And so you, in that message, or you can go out to the syllabus just like you did when you registered for the CLA. You're going to copy this code for the CLT, or copy. Then you're going to go out to OpusWorks, and instead of logging in like you have been for the last 4 weeks, you're going to go to register, and then you're going to paste that new code in there for the CLT.
I did it. I did it. I did everything.
Okay. So once you've done that,
yeah.
let me show you what it looks like. Once you've done that, and it took it, right? It lets you go through the steps to register. Once you've done that, you're just going to go up to classes, and it'll have supply chain foundation, and then it'll have supply chain mid-level technician. So you should have this extra class on there. And when you click on that, it's going to show you the 9 chapters that are in the CLT.
Yeah, I've been through that. And I'm taking the modules one after the other. When I'm taking the test, I say, I want to like, I want
for
to
the
go
practice exam.
When I do those tests, I do the tests.
Yeah.
I went back to see the like what I made, like what mistake, you know. When I go to the page, only the CLA tests are there, not CLT.
Okay. If you have, you should be able to see the same, all of them. The only thing I can say is sometimes when you're enrolling for when you activated that code, if you use a different letter anywhere in there and made it a different account or a different password, then you have to log in using that different username or different password to be able to see the CLT stuff. But if you're able to see this screen, you know, where you're actually doing the work, then you should be able to come back and revisit the test anytime you want. Test results, if you open any of those up, it will show you all your test
maybe
questions.
maybe gonna go the other route.
Yeah, so like I say, I've loaned my account to others, and just taking a look at this is the first chapter, and I think it has 10 questions or something like that. But you can see that here's a set of questions, and then if I look at another one, it'll have different sets of questions. And so the more often you take that quiz, the more you'll be exposed to all the different questions.
I'll try, and if there is anything, I'm gonna text you or email you.
Okay.
I
So once you've went out there and activated the CLT, because I had several emails about this that people were like, I don't see the CLT. Once you went out there and activated that, you should be able to see those. And it also has, where's OpusWorks? It's just out there. Yeah, it also has the test, practice test. And I'm really concerned now because test number 4, people were saying, yeah, there was a lot of similar content there. So test number 5 is the CLT practice. And that was from spring 20. So just 1 year ago, I put this together, and they've been changes enough to where I need to pick your guys' brains and update these. So once you take your CLA and your CLT, if you could send me, like, I didn't see this question when we were doing the quizzes or the reviews, then I can add that into the practice one for future classes. I mean, that's the only way I get the stuff. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording. I'm raising my hand for some reason.
Merle, can I
yeah.
say something?